It began on a moonless night, when the wind seemed to whisper secrets through the darkened streets of a quiet Japanese village. In the depths of silence, an eerie melody emerged, a rhythmic puh, 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 echoing among the trees, as if calling out to a hidden world. The story you are about to hear is one that the elders of this village dared not repeat during daylight. It is the tale of a figure so immense, so hauntingly tall, that her presence alone could freeze the heart of the bravest soul. In this very moment, as you listen to these words, imagine a distant silhouette emerging from the inky shadows, a woman, 8 feet tall, gliding with an otherworldly grace. She moves silently across the landscape, her long, ghostly limbs and unearthly aura bending the very fabric of fear. This is Hachishakusama, known among locals as the 8 feet tall woman, an enigmatic spirit whose one-word refrain, puh, has long been a harbinger of impending doom. Picture a narrow alley, illuminated only by the weak gleam of a lantern. Shadows dance along the walls as a child's laughter carries in the night. Suddenly, an unnatural hush falls over the scene. The laughter stops. A chilling presence permeates the air. Then, like a death knell, that singular sound, puh, slices through the silence. It isn't a cry of delight, nor a call for attention. It is the sound of a promise of terror. For decades, villagers whispered warnings of the tall specter who preyed on the young. They spoke of how she would appear unexpectedly at the windows of humble homes, her face concealed by a wide-brimmed hat, her white dress blending eerily with the night. Those who encountered her often reported a voice that could mimic the tender words of a loving guardian, or the sinister tone of something far more malevolent. In one such incident, a terrified parent recalled a night when their child, lured by what seemed to be a familiar, comforting voice, stepped out of bed. The child's innocent eyes met an impossible figure standing at the threshold, a towering silhouette that seemed to stretch to the heavens. The voice, gentle yet chilling, pleaded softly, "Come with me." Puh. In that harrowing moment, the clock of fate seemed to stall, and time itself twisted into a vortex of despair. Throughout the centuries, the legend of Hachishakusama has morphed into something far more than just a ghost story. It is now a part of the very fabric of rural Japanese folklore, one that teaches children caution and reaffirms the protective bonds of family. As you envision this spirit on your screen, allow the visuals to guide your imagination, flickering images of mist-covered landscapes, dimly lit traditional homes, and a solitary figure emerging among gnarled trees. The story unfolds through layers of whispered lore and first-hand encounters. A quiet countryside, where every rustle in the underbrush and every creak of an ancient wooden door hints at the spirit's presence. Some say that the spirit is not merely an embodiment of terror, but a vengeful force molded by an era of heartache and disdain, a remnant of a past where cruelty was met with injustice. It is said that her malevolence stemmed from an unspeakable tragedy, an act of cruelty that transformed pain into a curse. As the camera pans slowly over a fog-shrouded village, the viewer sees solitary figures moving in the distance, their faces lined with worry and haunted recollections. Here, legends are born not only from nightmares but from the bitter truths of history. They speak of a woman, once human, who suffered at the hands of those who mocked her appearance, her unusual stature making her the object of ridicule. In the cold silence of rejection, her tormented soul was transformed into a spectral enigma, a guardian of vengeance, or perhaps an agent of fate, whose sole purpose became to steal away the innocence of childhood. Allow yourself to feel the dread intensify as the visuals hint at an approaching storm. The wind picks up, the trees begin to sway, and the intermittent puh grows ever more insistent. A door creaks open in the distance. A child, trembling with both fear and curiosity, steps forward into the unknown. Behind the safety of closed doors and the protective embrace of family lies the grim possibility of one being chosen. Once marked, escape is a fruitless endeavor, as if destiny itself has been sealed with a curse. As you settle deeper into this chilling narrative, remember that each detail is carefully crafted to pull you into the depths of the legend. Minimal, atmospheric visuals, flickering candlelight, slow-motion shots of long corridors, and close-ups of terrified eyes complement the verbal imagery. This is not a mere tale. It is an experience designed to haunt your thoughts long after the screen fades to black. The journey ahead promises to reveal long-hidden secrets and connect the ephemeral threads of ancient lore with the stark realities of human fear. Listen closely, for once you hear her call, the legend of Hachishakusama will never release you from its grasp. The night's terror had not faded with the first light of dawn. Instead, its chill had seeped into the very soul of the village. As the mist receded from the cobblestone streets and traditional wooden houses, the villagers emerged with heavy eyes and cautious steps. In hushed, reverent tones, they spoke of memories best left unspoken, the lingering echo of that sinister puh that had heralded the arrival of Hachishakusama. In the early hours of a cold autumn morning, an elderly man, his weathered face etched by years of hardship and loss, sat at the entrance of a modest tea house. His name was Hiroshi, and he carried with him the weight of encounters too painful for daylight conversations. With trembling hands, he recalled a night not so long ago when his granddaughter, Imiko, had wandered too far from the safety of their home. I heard her sweet, innocent laughter mixed with a soft, insistent call, a call that wasn't her own. I saw her pause, her eyes transfixed on the silhouette of a figure that stood taller than the ancient cedar trees lining our village. He confessed, his voice breaking with each word. The fear Hiroshi described was not merely of an apparition but of an insidious force that preyed on the vulnerable. He recounted how, in the thick darkness of a moonless night, his small cottage had become a fortress. The air had grown heavy with dread, and family members hastily arranged bowls of salt on every sill and window ledge. These humble salts, once symbols of purity and protection, had turned ashen, their color drained of life, just as the legend foretold. The salt was said to betray the presence of the spirit when it near, a silent warning of the impending abduction of innocence. It was during these moments of raw terror that the villagers turned to ancient rituals passed down through generations. Scenes of fervent prayer and softly intoned chants filled the cold air. A small shrine, hidden beneath the sprawling branches of a gnarled oak, served as the heart of these rituals. At this shrine, elders recited incantations meant to shield the household from the predatory approach of Hachishakusama. As they chanted, the camera might slowly pan across a collection of worn talismans and faded photographs, a montage of grief and hope intertwined, reminding the viewer that these rites were as much about preserving memory as they were about warding off a relentless curse. The legend itself was woven from many threads, each recounting a different facet of the same unspeakable horror. Some elders believed that Hachishakusama had once been an ordinary woman, a misunderstood outcast whose extraordinary height became both her curse and her identity. In a world that prized conformity, her stature made her an easy target for ridicule and scorn. The cruelty inflicted by those who could not accept the anomalous only deepened her sorrow. In the crucible of such relentless isolation, her grief twisted into fury and a longing for vengeance. It was said that, in the moments preceding her death, she whispered a curse that would bind her spirit to the world of the living, forever condemning her to seek retribution on those who had mocked her, and on the generations that followed. Yet another version of the tale presented her as something far older, a primordial demon that had taken human form to serve a purpose beyond mortal comprehension. In this telling, Hachishakusama was not born of cruelty but had emerged from the dark recesses of forgotten folklore, drawn to the scent of innocent fear like a moth to a flame. This ancient spirit, some claimed, existed long before the modern era, a bridge between a time when the boundary between the living and the spiritual was but a thin veil. The idea of an otherworldly force, intent on rebalancing the scales of human suffering, lent the tale an aura of tragic inevitability. In another whispered account recounted by a survivor, a young schoolteacher named Yumi, the legend took on a more personal dimension. Yumi remembered vividly the fateful night when a group of children, returning late from a festival, were struck by an inexplicable stillness. One by one, their playful chatter dissolved into unnerving silence. It was as if the joy of the evening had been snatched away by an unseen hand. When Yumi arrived at the schoolyard, she found a lingering, inexplicable presence, footprints much too long for any child, mere impressions in the soft earth near the play area. The soil bore marks of friction, as if something had moved through it with deliberate, measured steps. The whispered accounts told of a ghostly figure in white, whose elongated limbs and swaying gait could be glimpsed only in the corner of one's eye. Even the air seemed to shudder in her wake. Visualize the scene, a dimly lit, narrow pathway bordered by ancient stone lanterns. The camera slowly zooms in on these worn artifacts, each one resonating with centuries of wisdom and folklore. Then, softly and suddenly, the footage transitions to a blurry, almost surreal image of a figure in a white dress, her hat tilting precariously as she moves against the backdrop of a crimson sky. This haunting imagery, set to a low, pulsating sound reminiscent of a heartbeat, reinforces the omnipresent dread that has come to define the legend of Hachishakusama. In these moments, the narrative interweaves with the modern world, a world where the legend persists despite the march of time and technology. Social media posts, eerie urban exploration videos, and anonymous accounts in internet forums all testify to a persistent cultural memory. The spirit has become a modern avatar of ancient fears, her image reinterpreted in digital art and viral videos. In some of these contemporary retellings, Hachishakusama is even shown in slow-motion vignettes, her haunting silhouette framed by neon-lit urban backdrops. These scenes serve to remind the viewer that though the legend may have roots in the past, its tendrils reach out into the present and, perhaps, the future. As the narrative deepens, a pattern emerges, a recurring motif of isolation and the desperate need for protection. Families would huddle together, bolting doors and windows, not just to keep the spirit at bay but also to hold fast to each other amid an indifferent universe. In one particularly evocative account, a widowed mother spoke of how the oppressive presence of Hachishakusama had driven her to create a protective circle with her neighbors every night. Under the flickering light of a single lantern, they would join hands in a silent vigil, a gesture of solidarity against an enemy they could neither see nor fully comprehend. Their determined expressions, captured in grainy black and white photographs passed down through generations, conveyed a sense of communal defiance against the darkness that sought to break them apart. There is also a prevailing notion among some that Hachishakusama's curse is selective, a harbinger reserved for those who stray from the safe confines of their homes, the wandering spirits of restless children. It is said that if one hears her call and dares to answer, the path that follows is one that leads inevitably into despair. The chilling possibility arises that even the purest heart may be seduced into a fatal dalliance with the unknown, lured by the deceptive promises of a voice that mimics the warmth of a loved one. In these situations, the spirit does not merely steal a life, but replaces it, a cruel masquerade where the victim slowly becomes a phantom of their former self, doomed to wander a limbo of perpetual sorrow. To reinforce this dread, storytellers have long employed simple yet potent symbols. The image of the white dress, a garment that, in the light of day, symbolizes purity and innocence, transforms in the night into a shroud of spectral malice. The wide-brimmed hat that conceals her face serves as an enduring reminder that not every truth is meant to be seen. Some are left deliberately hidden, like secrets buried in the dark soil of time. And the repeated utterance of "puh," a sound so simple yet so laden with foreboding, echoes as a constant refrain, a reminder that the boundaries between safety and doom are perilously thin. As time marches on, the legend of Hachishakusama gathers layers of meaning, each new generation adding its own brushstroke to the portrait of an ever-morphing terror. In contemporary Japan, despite the encroachment of modernity and scientific rationality, there remains an undercurrent of fear that something unexplainable lingers in the shadowed recesses of the night. The spirit, in many ways, has become a metaphor for the residual scars of a society in transition, a representation of the old ways, the old curses, that still echo in the rhythms of the modern world. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the mind wanders between memory and imagination, one cannot help but wonder, is Hachishakusama merely a specter of legend, or does she exist in some tangible form, an embodiment of the collective nightmares of a people long scarred by loss and isolation? The answer, like the legend itself, remains frustratingly elusive. For every skeptic, there is a believer, a child who still refuses to sleep alone, or an elder who holds up a protective talisman with trembling hands. Now, as you watch the screen and listen to the rustling of wind through barren branches, allow your mind to dwell on the possibility of what lurks just beyond the veil of our understanding. The darkened forests, the abandoned alleys, and the forgotten corners of ancient temples all whisper the same warning. Once you have caught a glimpse of that towering figure, once you hear the hypnotic cadence of puh, 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 your destiny may be forever intertwined with the enigma of Hachishakusama. In these moments, the narrative leaves you with a lingering question, a whisper that echoes long after the final frame fades. What price must be paid for the fleeting brush with the unknown? And in the silence that follows, with hearts pounding like the relentless tick of an ancient clock, you too may find yourself wondering if you are being watched from the shadows, waiting for that inevitable moment when the night calls out and the legend comes for you. Each retelling, each hushed conversation in a dimly lit room, further cements her legacy. Whether born of sorrow, anger, or an ancient curse, Hachishakusama remains an inexorable force. A reminder that some legends are not easily dismissed, that some cries in the darkness continue to ring true across the passage of time. As you immerse yourself in these chilling accounts, let the images of fog-draped streets and eyes that gleam with unspoken secrets etch themselves upon your memory. For in the realm of Hachishakusama, the boundary between myth and reality blurs, and the fear of the unknown is a constant companion. And so, as the day unfolds and the modern world resumes its relentless pace, the legacy of the 8-feet-tall woman lingers like a spectral shadow, waiting, watching, and ever ready to remind us that not all nightmares are confined to sleep. In the hush of a new day, one that barely hinted at the horrors of the night before, the village slowly stirred, its people bearing the scars of memories that no sunlight could entirely heal. As the light spread across damp fields and the weary faces of the elderly, a somber understanding settled among them, that the night's terror was not an isolated incident, but a relentless reminder of a curse that transcended individual tragedies. In a quiet corner of a centuries-old shrine, an assembly of villagers gathered as if in silent communion with fate itself. Their eyes, glistening with both sorrow and resolve, were fixed upon faded scrolls and ancient talismans. These relics, passed down through countless generations, spoke of rituals lost to time, rituals meant to call upon benevolent spirits and fortify the soul against the relentless force of malevolence. One of the elders, his voice soft yet laden with authority, began the sacred chant. As his words mingled with the crisp morning air, the camera would slowly zoom in on the intricate designs carved into the wood of an altar, the images of guardians from myth dancing in the flicker of a solitary candle flame. For many, Hachishakusama had long ceased to be just a ghost story. Instead, she had become a symbol, a grim allegory for society's enduring struggles against isolation, intolerance, and the dark shadows of history. The children of the village, though told tales of her in hushed, fearful whispers, also embodied the hope that stems from unity. Even in despair, there was a collective will to protect the innocent, a fierce, unspoken promise that no one, no matter how tall or fearsome, could break the bonds of kinship and community. This promise, echoed in the soft murmur of prayers and the determined eyes of those who still held on to hope, was the village's shield against the cruelty of fate. Beyond the village, a larger world had taken notice of the legend, a world where digital forums, cinematic reinterpretations, and viral urban exploration videos had all served to amplify the ancient tale. In neon-lit cityscapes and rain-soaked alleys far removed from the quaint hamlets of rural Japan, the specter of Hachishakusama morphed into a modern myth. YouTube channels dedicated to mysteries replayed her story frame by frame, while social media lit up with accounts of encounters that defied explanation. The legend had broken free from the confines of tradition, embedding itself into the collective imagination of a global audience, reminding everyone that sometimes the line between myth and reality is perilously thin. In one such modern retelling, a young filmmaker set out to capture what she believed was evidence of the spirit's existence. Venturing into abandoned temples and desolate forest trails, she meticulously recorded moments of eerie silence and unexplained phenomena. As she navigated through corridors where the light of the setting sun fought a losing battle against encroaching shadows, she paused near a crumbling torii gate. In that timeless moment, her camera caught a fleeting glimpse, a tall, spectral figure silhouetted against the horizon, just beyond the veil of reality. The moment, as brief as a heartbeat, sent shivers down her spine and forged yet another link in the seemingly unbreakable chain of Hachishakusama's enduring legacy. Yet, the legend was not solely a narrative of terror. It was also a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of human experience. For those who had lost loved ones or lived under the constant threat of a fate too cruel to comprehend, Hachishakusama was an externalization of an internal anguish, a manifestation of grief and a longing for retribution against a world that had once been unkind. In a particularly haunting account, a bereaved mother recounted how the spirit's shadow seemed to visit her in moments of solitude. In the quiet after midnight, when the world was cloaked in an almost tangible silence, she would hear the faint, rhythmic puh, 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 as if it were the sound of a heartbeat echoing in an empty room. In those moments, her tears spoke of a love lost, while the ghostly whisper served as a cruel reminder that sometimes, the past is not so easily laid to rest. As the narrative began to weave its final threads, a powerful question emerged, one that resonated with everyone who had ever dared to listen to the ancient warnings. Is there truly a way to break free from such an enduring curse, or is it an inexorable force that will forever bind the destinies of those who wander too far into the realms of darkness? The answer, shrouded in ambiguity, was offered by the simplest yet most profound truth. Only unity and unwavering love can shield us from the horrors that prey on our vulnerabilities. In the final moments of this legend, the villagers, once divided by fear and loss, found solace in their shared strength. They organized nightly vigils, their voices harmonizing in chants that spoke of healing and renewal. In the glow of the moon, as they circled together beneath an ancient cedar tree, the rhythmic murmur of their prayers became a counterpoint to the malevolent puh that haunted the edges of their existence. Visualize a scene where the camera pans over a circle of determined faces, lit only by the gentle sway of lanterns and the soft, united murmur of communal hope. Each face, lined with stories of sorrow and resilience, told a tale not of defeat but of defiance, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure even the deepest of nightmares. And in that moment, the spirit of Hachishakusama, long the embodiment of fear, seemed to lose some of its edge, its power diminished by the unyielding strength of unity. The final chapter of this tale is not merely an ending, but an open invitation, a call to remember that the line between legend and reality is one we constantly redraw with our courage, our compassion, and our willingness to confront the unknown. For in every whispered puh in the darkness, there lies an opportunity to shine a light, to gather together against the forces that seek to isolate and terrify. As the screen slowly fades to black, the final words linger like a benediction, urging you to cherish those who stand by you in times of uncertainty. Know this: every legend, no matter how fearsome, is but a story that has the power to teach us, to bind us together, and ultimately, to empower us to turn our deepest fears into the very source of our strength. May the memory of this night serve as both warning and guide, a reminder that even when the terror of the unknown seems insurmountable, the collective light of hope can dispel the darkest shadows. And as you carry this tale into the world beyond these words, may you never forget that in the face of legends such as Hachishakusama, our shared humanity is our greatest shield. the wind may still whisper, puh, 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 in the dead of night, and somewhere in the inky blackness, a towering shadow may stir. But remember, if you ever hear that eerie call, you are not alone. Stand together, hold on to the light, and let the timeless power of unity be your refuge against the chill of the eternal night.